Is it recording? It is recording. Okay, awesome. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. And today we are going to be presenting on program creation, planning, and developing, something that all of you, I'm sure, have experience in. So again, just welcome and thank you for attending today's technical assistance webinar. This webinar is presented by Amity Foundation, acting as the third-party administrator for LA County's Justice Care and Opportunities Department and the CFCI Care Grants. The CFCI, or Care First Community Investment Grants, are the result of ballot measure J, voted in by LA County residents in 2020. Care First community investment funds are intended to be invested directly into communities and alternatives to incarceration that address negative outcomes caused by racially driven criminal legal system inequalities and long-term economic disinvestment. So today's webinar is being recorded. You do not have to be on camera. However, understand if you are on camera, your image may be captured in the recording. And staying on the webinar represents your consent to being recorded. At Amity, we incorporate teachings that center the community before we begin our work. Today, we will use the LA County Land Acknowledgement that recognizes the price paid by individuals that has resulted in efforts such as Care First Community Investments. So we recognize that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tonva, Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in the genocide of the First Peoples. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. So, we will get started. So I'm sure all of you are very well aware with what is a program and hopefully how to create and develop it. So hopefully a couple of you will be able to chime in comments during this presentation, but we are going to start off with what is a nonprofit program. Does anyone want to come off mute and just explain a little bit about what their interpretation is of a nonprofit program? Anyone? Anyone can just jump in. No?
Do you want us to read it or our interpretation of
No,
it?
your interpretation.
Oh, a organization that runs off donations and grants. It's not for profit.
Yeah, no, for sure. In your experience, has a nonprofit been able to make profit?
In my experience, no, because it's usually like it's given out to a profit that they make is being able to give back out to the community. The people that are usually in nonprofits are in it because they're passionate about the organization, not to make money.
Thank you so much, Jenny.
You're
So
welcome.
as Jenny stated, yeah, I mean, a nonprofit really is for the community. And actually, the Center for Effective Philanthropy reported that 88% of nonprofits surveyed altered their program offerings to really serve the community. They wanted to help the individuals out and make significant changes. So they will tailor their missions, their programs, so that they are prioritizing their communities. So a program director or nonprofit founder who's looking for, wanting to bring something specific out into their environment, they are going to tailor their nonprofit program to that. So, nonprofit professionals sometimes find themselves rushing to expand or scale programs because they want to help. They see the need and they just want to get in there and start running. However, I'm sure all of us have seen that you have to prepare. And as much as we want to help our communities yesterday, we need to think about how are we going to do this so that it's flushed out very well, and so that at the end of the day we really are helping out the community that we want to help. So how do nonprofit organizations decide to expand maybe a program or a service? What triggers that expansion of services and programs? What are the best strategies for developing nonprofit programs? Thinking these questions through is really essential in understanding the dynamics of nonprofit growth. Various factors such as also feasibility studies, the unmet community needs, that strategic planning that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. The collaborative partnerships always play a pivotal role in making decisions to create a new program. I'm sure a lot of us want to always, expand and grow. So when we have our nonprofit set, how do we do that, right? How do we go off and build on what is already the foundation? So first, of course, we need to conduct a needs assessment. So a needs assessment is the process of determining whether there is an actual quantifiable need for the work or the service of your nonprofit in a certain location. So conducting a needs assessment is an essential first step to take before you begin program planning or starting, you know, expansion. So a couple of questions that you may ask yourself is, how should you define the problem that you're setting out to solve? Are there any existing organizations who are trying to solve the same problem? This question is actually really important because maybe it's not so much about expanding into location, or it's about, how can you work alongside that other organization who's already doing the work in the community so that you can amplify that work. What is the scope of the problem that you're trying to solve? For example, how many people would potentially use your services? Where do where does your expertise in regard to solving the problem come from? So what the step boils down to is doing your research. So a nonprofit is a business at the end of the day. And in the same way that a startup success is dependent on pre-launch market research, a nonprofit success is reliant on a thorough needs assessment. So if you're not sure where to begin when it comes to finding answers to the questions that I asked above, um, we definitely have some listed. So, of course, going into the community. So, if you know anyone who has experience with that nonprofit work that you're looking to get into, you want to connect with the members of the demographic that you're hoping to serve. You want to get the firsthand account of the problem and how it's currently being handled by the community. This is something that politicians often do as they're always going through, wanting to talk to their communities. You want to try to collect key information by running a questionnaire or a survey. This is a great way to also gauge your community's interest in the service that you're planning to provide. Census data. So when it comes to answering the question of how many people your nonprofit could potentially reach, census data is extremely helpful. And luckily, some municipal and regional planning groups also publish population growth projections. So that may be somewhere that you also can reach out to and get that information. Libraries. So what better way to learn than those who have already done research for you? So libraries, other organizations, like data, they will be able to help you in seeing those trends and learning about the area that you want to expand into. So some reflection questions as you are going through a needs assessment is, again, why are you wanting to expand into a certain location? Why do you want to provide services in, the Downey area or Long Beach or Watts, wherever it is? What are the best strategies for developing those programs in that location? What are key factors that contribute to the successful creation and expansion of your program in a new location? How can your nonprofit ensure that its programs are fully prepared before expanding into a new location? How can your staff, your volunteers collaborate to manage the complexities of program development and expansion? These reflection questions help with understanding the dynamics of nonprofit growth. They take time to answer, but the exploration and expanding is extremely helpful when you're looking to jump off to open up a new location, to open up a new program. The fundamental at the end of the day is achieving the goal that you set out to. So the dynamic nature of creating, expanding, and scaling programs requires the blend of strategic planning, adaptability, collaboration among your staff, among your volunteers, your overall stakeholders. So by addressing the complexities and challenges inherent in the process of program development, you as a nonprofit can ensure that your program remains relevant, impactful, and sustainable. So another step in wanting to, expand and launch somewhere else or launching a new program within your organization is assembling a team. So if your needs assessment determines that there is enough cause to launch a new program, your next step is starting to put together that team. So as much as we sometimes want to do the work all by ourselves and we think that we can do it, it's best to gather a support system of individuals who will help make your dream come true, right? So where can you find them? So you want to recruit them either from your organization. Let's say that your prime what's it called? Subject in your organization is employment, but you want to get into, housing. How, employment has a hand in hand in housing. Without a stable location, the job often falls apart. So if you have someone within your organization who wants to take lead, if they want to, if they have a passion for it, see how they can help you create this new program. You want to include your staff who may hold positions such as, a coordinator, a specialist, a manager, a director. And if you can't find one within your staff, maybe your volunteers. A lot of volunteers want to get more involved. They want to, you know, they see things from another perspective and lens where they have great information that is very reliable and suitable for an organization. So pick their brains. Of course, you might also have to go outside of the organization and hire. But always look within your org at the very beginning, because they may just be, wanting to jump into another space and grow. So as I had mentioned, sometimes we want to do things all on our own. We feel like we can, we're doing so well here that we can add more onto our plate. Or we don't have the funds to hire another person, which often in nonprofit, it's the reality. However, we want to make sure that our staff are not getting burnt out. So we want to craft a project timeline so that we can clearly understand staff capacity. So start by evaluating the team's current workload and availability. Then determine who will work on what project, what responsibilities will fall in line with who. So understanding staff capacity will help set realistic deadlines and avoid overcommitting a team member. So how to effectively assess staff capacity? You want to understand the staff's availability. Identify each member's current commitments and assess how much time they can realistically dedicate to new projects. Utilize project management strategies like resource allocation charts that can help visually lay out a team's capacity and help organizations plan better. I'm a visual learner, I'm a visual person, so I always have to see it on my calendar or on a chart. You know, how do things end up breaking up? Evaluate skills and experience as well. Ensure that your team has the necessary skills to complete a project. If there are gaps, consider how the gaps will be addressed, whether through training, hiring, or outsourcing work to contractors. Again, those volunteers can be a valuable resource to support projects. Determine how volunteers can be integrated into a project plan to extend capacity from tasks to event planning, phone calls, outreach, marketing, securing resources. And then, of course, you want to look at the realistic planning based on capacity. So once the team's capacity is assessed, it's definitely time to create that plan that aligns with what's feasible for your new program, for your new location. And it involves setting achievable goals and deadlines that account for budget constraints, staff availability, also based off of like volunteer contributions and other high priority programs and initiatives. By factoring these into your plan from the start, you can ensure that your project, your program, your new location remains on track and is attainable. Again, planning tips, you want to break down the task. By breaking a project down into smaller, manageable tasks, it can be crucial in the effective planning and execution. So this approach makes the project feel less overwhelming and allows for a more straightforward delegation of responsibilities. So you can either divide the project, you can set specific goals and deadlines, you can delegate tasks, you can track progress, you can create adaptability, so smaller tasks allowing for easier adjustments to changes or unforeseen challenges without derailing the entire project. So I'll hand it off to you guys. How do you reassess or manage your team's capacity within your organization, whether it's starting or looking into a new program or in the program you're working in now? How do you, you know, divide and conquer? Anyone can come off mute.
Could share a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is Maggie Romero from the Fernandina Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. This is a challenge for us. I think, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person in this audience who's thinking that. I will say that one of the things we started to do with managing our staff capacity was we looked at like what are this that like busy work tasks. So is it stuffing envelopes? Is it cutting up paper for program supplies? And we actually have a cohort of our teens who we started a teen volunteer program. They're called volunteens, and after committing so many volunteer hours with us, they are eligible for a small stipend for their continued work. Um, and so it's incentive for them to stay in our program as well as to give back to the community. And it's been a real big success. We have a lot of kids who are applying to be a part of it. And it's helped not only alleviate a burden that our staff was having, but also it's helping the community. we had kids kind of saying like, we want to participate more, but it's, I could also get a job instead. So this is a way that we're, trying to keep them engaged and to help meet a need. We also started relying on more contractors that could help us facilitate and kind of execute particular projects. And some of this is, they have the expertise and the knowledge, and it's a way of forming a partnership. So be that we contract with a different organization that's doing similar work or knowledge keepers within the tribe. It's something that has allowed us to just grow our community as well. So I guess that's a little bit about how we've been doing it, but we still struggle with this.
I love that you're bringing in your community members, and those students, they are gaining that real life experience, which is awesome. They get to put it on a resume. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Maggie. So definitely prioritizing, as Maggie just stated, having little cohorts is definitely impactful and important. So identifying, critical tasks, determine which tasks are more important to your program success or your project success. Focus on high priority work. Ensure that the most important tasks are completed first. Build flexibility. So by prioritizing essential tasks, you can confidently defer or deprioritize less critical activities if constraints arise without compromising core objectives. So reassess regularly. So continuously evaluate and adjust priorities as a program progresses to maintain focus on the most impactful activities. So continuous evaluation, again, regularly assess the progress of tasks, the overall project to identify any changes and priorities, and align your resources. Ensure that resources are consistently aligning with the key goals and adapting to the evolving project needs. So creating a program plan. So once you've got a team behind you to provide support and bounce, to give you that motivation and that energy, you should start program planning. So what is a program nonprofit plan? So a program plan is a document similar to a business plan that helps with, the program development and refinement. Writing a program plan requires research and strategic thinking, but it is an essential step for program development. In 3 steps, the best way to really summarize it is, by doing an executive summary, market analysis, and a program operations overview, which definitely has, more little sub bullet points within that all in itself, but your executive summary should explain the what, the why, and how behind your nonprofit. So, or your program or the purpose of your new location. Introduce the purpose, detail the problem you're seeking to solve, and briefly explain how you plan to do so. If you have a, mission statement, whether it's overall or to that specific program or location, it's also a good idea to include that here as well. Your market analysis. So your market analysis should include a concise explanation of the need your program will serve, an overview of the demographics your location can target, and information about any other organizations that serve the same need. The needs assessment you conducted earlier will come in handy for this section. And that program operations overview. So what will your new location be geared towards? Will it be events-based, or will it be one-on-one social work between trained volunteers and those in need? Or will it be more focused on providing resources to the community? Think about adding information about your staffing plan under this overview. Speaking of how you will carry out your program, how you will staff your new location, a breakdown of who will be involved with managing. While we can recommend including some information about your team in there, it's not necessary. Um, Also the timeline. This is really the when section. You should include when your program or your new location will open, when your program will launch, key organizational goals or milestones that will help you measure how effective your new program, your new location will be. And then rather than include specific dates, similar to the milestones that a lot of you are currently creating, set a range such as, 30 days, 3 months, depending on what you are seeing, timeline wise. And then, of course, you always want to include your financials. So the most challenging section of all is probably the financials. So definitely do a feasible study and include a snapshot of, what your financials look like. What will make your program successful? Um, you know, are you going to include a third party organization? Are you going to do this within your own organization? What does, your overhead cost? So definitely the expenses that you will incur throughout this, new location, what is it going to cost to open it? Or a new program, what is the budget for starting a new program? So a logic model is a great tool and diagram for those visual learners, visual people. It really lets you think about the relationship between your resources, your activities, your outputs, your outcomes, and the impacts. So it's crucial for organizations to conduct a logic model if they are creating a new program or if they're adapting a program, piloting a new program, opening up a new location, so that you can really understand the potential unknowns that may be involved with your launching. So in the slide is an example of a logic model. So definitely thinking of those short-term outcomes, long-term outcomes, and then listing out the goals in input, activities, and outputs. So writing a case for support. So at this point in the process, you've done a needs assessment, you've assembled a team, you've worked through the process of creating a program plan. So next you need the attention of potential donors. So writing a case of support is a document that a lot of nonprofits use for prosthetic donors. So the purpose of this document is to communicate what your organization does, the impact of your work, and most importantly, why a potential donor should support you. So once you created a case for support, start thinking about the most effective way to share it with your potential donors. So posting it on your website, emailing it directly to past donors who could be a great strategy to, for them to send to their communities, to their networks. But if you have an event planned, you should also print physical copies to hand out to the individuals attending your events. So once you've done all that, you've recruited your team, you've done your research, you've launched your program, and now it's time to start making progress towards your goals. So, of course, you set a date, you make an implementation plan, and you invest in the resources that will bolster your program's success. So, setting a launch date early on in the program planning process is definitely a must. With your timeline in place, you'll know when to start fundraising, when to begin recruiting, when to schedule volunteers so that they can get trained, and when to begin measuring the impact of your new, whatever it is, new location, new program. Make an implementation plan. So your implementation plan should detail what needs to happen throughout the weeks leading up to and after your launch. So do you need to hold a training session for volunteers? If so, who will be responsible for leading that session? Write down all of the to-dos your team needs to complete for a successful launch. And make sure that they're each assigned to a team member so that everyone knows what their role is. Invest in resources that will bolster your program success or your new location success. So whether it's a new team member or new technology, there's a good chance that you'll have to make additional investments at some point to ensure your nonprofit grows. And while we can't predict what you will need, it can definitely point you in the right direction. So, understanding change in nonprofit projects. So, change is inevitable everywhere. Have any of you ever started, planning out something for your nonprofit and it just falls through? Does anyone have an example that they can share? Or has everyone here been
Oh,
super
I can share.
there? Thank
Hi.
you.
Yeah, this is Terry with High Point. When we first started to launch our AVOS, our resource fair in the Lancaster area, no one showed up no one showed up to our fairs. The agencies weren't showing up, the people weren't showing up, and it was terrible when we first launched. So that's
What
our
did you
bad.
do?
We changed locations. We hired an operations manager who was really good at detailing, great communicating via email, on-person call. She would just butter people up. They couldn't wait to show up. And then we had more people than we can handle showing up to the research fair. So we just changed our marketing strategy, communication, and our location.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, as she stated, whether it's responding to emerging community issues, shifts in priorities, new opportunities to amplify that impact, you have to adapt, right? So, the environment definitely requires organizations to be proactive and to really shift at a moment's notice. So I'm sure we've all either done an event or attended an event where there's very little individuals showing up, and it can break our hearts. The thing to keep in mind is to not quit, right? To try again and looking back to see what can change. So whether that's, if you lost funding, if you had a leadership transition, if you need to pivot in your program, definitely identify what needs to be done. So identifying and prioritizing project milestones is an important part of effective project management. So milestones serve as key markers that signify important progress points, helping organizations and their teams stay focused and have clear goals to work towards. So again, prioritizing those high impact tasks. So not all tasks are created equal. Some have more significant impact on the project's overall success and should be prioritized accordingly. So definitely seeing, if your location that you chose is not in a high traffic area, move it somewhere else. Um, if you see that your event is on the same day as something else that's going on within the community, see if you can join into other events. So definitely pivoting. And sometimes you might not know how to, and bringing in that additional support again, is really important. Sometimes they have something, communication, or they see something that you may not. So change doesn't have to be daunting. By approaching it strategically and with empathy, you can not only survive, but thrive. Effective change management ensures that your project stays aligned with your mission, even in uncertain times. Effective program design and planning are definitely vital for achieving organizational goals. It starts with aligning the program's objectives with the organization's broader vision, ensuring every element contributes to the overall mission. So, strategic resource allocation maximizes efficiency and effectiveness, while incorporating risk management minimizes potential impediments. Establishing clear, measurable outcomes enables progress tracking and necessary adjustments, keeping the organization on target. Engaging your stakeholders ensures essential support and involvement, crucial for success. Regular reviews and evaluations, they always facilitate continuous improvements. Adapting to changes and maintaining alignment with organizational goals, and then building flexibility into your timeline. So by anticipating and planning for delays, always, plan for A, B, C, and Z. Your organization can create space for unforeseen challenges by incorporating buffer time, developing contingency plans, and remaining adaptable to changes in need and demand. Your organization can create a resilient timeline that ensures project success. Anticipating and planning for delays, even the best laid out plans can encounter obstacles. So building the flexibility into your timeline allows you to adapt for those unforeseen challenges without derailing your entire, project. So definitely consider buffer time. So add buffer periods between major milestones to accommodate potential delays. Develop backup plans for critical tasks so that your team knows how to pivot if things don't go as planned. Nonprofits often face fluctuating demands, which can affect project timelines. So being prepared to adjust your plan in response to changing needs is definitely really important. Again, assessing your needs regularly. So those weekly team meetings or those weekly group huddles is essential in evaluating your community's needs to ensure that your project remains relevant. Be willing to adjust the project scope based on funding, based on the available resources, and emerging priorities. And then time management. Effective time management is imperative for our organizations looking to maximize their impact while working with limited resources, especially when managing small teams. Being strategic about delegation and communication can significantly improve productivity and ensure that projects run smoothly. By delegating tasks based on the team members' strengths and empowering volunteers with the necessary tools and trainings, organizations can distribute the workload effectively. So definitely not letting our team members to feel burnt out. So definitely match those tasks to skills, set clear expectations, and empower your team members with the training and tools they need to contribute effectively. So I always recommend having the right tools. So for new projects or for ongoing projects, we often will, create a group chat on Microsoft Teams, but there's other things out there that let you put in, they're more project management style softwares that help you manage your projects more effectively without adding unnecessary complexity, and can be especially helpful for managing remote nonprofit teams, especially if your project management, you want it to be organized and efficient. So things such as Trello. I don't know if anyone here has used Trello in the past, but Trello is an amazing app, websites actually. It's simple, it's visual, great for small teams. It's definitely easy to use using a simple drag and drop interface. It's great for team collaboration so that you have clear visual task management. And another app is Asana. Asana is more robust with features for tracking tasks, timelines, and even team workloads. It often integrates other tools into it, such as Slack, Google Drive, and Microsoft Teams. And it also offers automation features to streamline repetitive tasks. Monday.com offers customizable workflows that can be tailored to your organization's needs. It's highly customizable. It's strong collaboration features. It has strong collaboration features, including a real-time update and team communication tools. So oftentimes, you just need some organization. Choosing the right software for your organization can really make all the difference. So once you have, all of that, think about how you can continue on with your goals. Creating a timeline, that keeps you organized, that keeps you on track to your end goal is definitely important. So by following the strategies that you've planned out for your organization, you can create a project timeline or a new location timeline that keeps your organization on track and enhances your ability to serve your community effectively. So take these steps in order to improve and to really make that impact for your community. So that is the end of our presentation. Our QR code for post-webinar survey is on the screen. I'm going to keep it up for a little bit more before I stop sharing and put the link in the chat. So I'll wait like a couple more seconds. So let me stop sharing. So, as I had stated at the beginning of the webinar, there we go.